Well, I'm back again. My last brief talk was about some aspects of the Kennedy assassination that I find very interesting that are not commonly known. Um, Back in, actually, on September 11th, 2001, I had gotten up early and was drinking my coffee and watching the Today Show with Katie Couric and Matt Lauer. Natalie, my wife, and I generally watched part of the Today Show together while we drank our coffee. Um, at about a quarter till 7 here, no, a quarter till 8 here, in Central Time Zone in Arkansas. Um, Katie Couric interrupted the program to say that a report that perhaps a some form of plane had struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Uh, and then over the next few minutes, it became obvious that it wasn't a small plane, it was a big plane, and that the tower was on fire. And then so news coverage of the towers began. And I woke Natalie up and we watched together as the second plane slammed into the South Tower. Uh, and of course, we were in shock. America's been attacked and weren't at all aware of who or why or what was going on. Um, but while watching, we were glued to the television set, as I'm sure most of the people in the nation were. Um, the South Tower evaporated, descended into its footprint, just fell at free fall speed into its footprint, not significantly damaging the neighborhood around it. Um, I said to my wife, that can't happen. I mean, it's just a physical impossibility that a concrete and steel structure can descend against its support system at free fall speed in a symmetrical fashion. And I said, that can't happen. And explained my position on why that can't happen to Natalie. And then a little while later, of course, the North Tower followed suit, did the same thing. Well, I thought, obviously there were explosives in whoever crashed the planes into the building had set up explosives in the building to bring it down like a controlled demolition. And we're going to figure out who did it and how they did it, and they're going to pay the price. So I figured, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Nobody could get away with a crime like that without being caught. So I just waited to find out what happened. Then I waited, and I waited. And then I waited for the 9/11 Commission report, which I bought a copy of that and read it. And it did not explain, it did not even address the nature of the free fall collapse into their footprint of the buildings 1 and 2, and didn't mention the free fall collapse into its footprint of building 7. Very suspicious. I became interested in the subject and really tried to do an in-depth study. Reading the 9/11 Commission report, the NIST report on National Institute of Standards and Technology report on the fall of those buildings, and then reading on the internet as much as I could find out about the 9/11 and what was going on, the truth about 9/11. The deeper I dug, the more obvious to me it became that Iraq had nothing to do with it. Probably the 17 Saudi supposed hijackers had very little to do with it, probably, and because of lack of records of them ever being in the airports and other information like the ringleaders of the supposed hijacking of the planes barely made it from Portland, Maine to New Jersey to get on the flight that they would then commandeer and carry into the Twin Towers. And they got to the airport from Portland, Maine, to where they were going to commit the greatest crime in the history of the United States, and had to run through the airport because their flight from Portland landed about 30 or 40 minutes before the plane for LA that they were going to get on left. And their bags didn't even make it onto the plane, but that became valuable because the bags contained evidence that linked them to the hijacking and the assault on World Trade Center. Somehow or another, they made it through the airport like nobody else might be able to do so because they didn't get photographed coming into the airport, passing through the airport, getting in the waiting area to board their plane. There was no photographic evidence of their ever getting on the plane. And also, the four planes, the average flight from transcontinental flight from East Coast to West Coast or West Coast to East Coast generally was completely booked or 90% booked or greater than 90% booked because it's expensive to fly a big jet from coast to coast. And so obviously the airlines establish schedules that fill up their planes. I suppose most of the people watching this video have flown on a commercial flight, and as you know, frequently there are people on standby in case somebody doesn't make it onto that flight. They have a full flight schedule, but if somebody doesn't make it, one of the people on standby can take their seat. So the planes are generally almost completely full. Well, on 9/11, the four flights that were hijacked, the total passenger list plus crew for those four flights would not fill up one of those planes. In other words, they were less than 25% booked. A very strange anomaly, but that meant that a whole lot fewer people died than if the planes had been completely booked. And that meant a whole lot less insurance payouts to deceased families from the people that flew on those planes, and a whole lot less people being deeply interested in exactly what happened that day. I'm going to stop this talk right here because I could actually talk all day about such things as the nature of the illnesses that ended up killing the people that worked the pile. Most of the people that worked the pile after the destruction of the Twin Towers that helped clean it up, within a few years were disabled, and large percentages of those people died due to something that they related to their job cleaning up the World Trade Center site after the collapse of the buildings there. Many of them died of multiple myeloma, which is a disease that generally affects people over 60, but this group of people they were much younger when they worked the pile. And I talked with oncologists at a cancer center in New York, and they told me that they had no idea why this group of people were ending up with a higher incidence of multiple myeloma, which is cancer of bone marrow. But they were. Well, one of the things that can cause younger people to develop multiple myeloma is radiation exposure. So perhaps the demolition of the Twin Towers was accomplished using mini nukes that then left behind radioactive particles that decay, and then as they decay, the radiation then can damage biologic tissues. And so if the people that worked the pile had been exposed to a significant amount of radiation, they would have a higher incidence of multiple myeloma. The oncologists I spoke with could not think of another reason, but they said, well, there was no radiation at ground zero. That may or may not be true, but the tritium levels in the water in the basements of the Twin Towers 2 days after the collapse of the Twin Towers was markedly increased, according to scientists that studied that water. Tritium is one of the byproducts of nuclear fission reactions, and also nuclear fusion reactions, but doubtful that fusion reactions could have been used, not with the technologies that I'm aware of at this time. But I'm going to stop this talk there. I'll probably refer back to other things concerning 9/11, such as the collapse of Building 7 and the people that were involved in what is probably the cover-up of the crimes, and their nationalities and their probable reasons for participating in this act against the United States of America and the American people, and ultimately the sovereignty of nations. But I'm going to save Building 7 and related information for a separate .tom talk.